If you're reading along in the sermon this morning, this part's not there. It just occurred to me that makes a good illustration. This week, I came home at one day and Patty was watching the movie San Andreas on television. It's not a great movie. But in that movie, a woman is in a restaurant speaking to her ex-husband on the telephone when the earthquake hits. And he just at that moment happens to be shuttling a helicopter from one place to a maintenance bay and is nearby. And on the telephone, he tells her, go to the roof. And so, in the midst of the chaos of this earthquake, with the building literally collapsing around her, everyone is rushing to the fire escape to go down. And because she has hope, she goes up. She attempts several times to convince her friends to go with her up to the roof, to the helicopter, and they refuse. The reason this is important is because our subject today is that sometimes hope requires something of us. And for this woman, because she had the hope that she would be rescued by a helicopter, she went a different direction than everyone else. She went a different direction than you would normally expect to go because she had hope. When we read the books of the prophets, we often mislead ourselves because the prophets seem, or usually we see them as heroes. We mislead ourselves into believing that God's prophets were important or powerful or even well-liked during their lifetimes. But often the experience of God's prophets was just the opposite. Often the words that they carried were messages of God's displeasure, news of punishment, impending disaster, doom, and death. And as a result, the prophets of God were often disliked, unwelcome, beaten, imprisoned, or banned entirely from the temple or from the king's palace. In 1 Kings chapter 18, Ahab, the king of Israel, went to meet Elijah on Mount Carmel, and the first thing he says, when he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" But sometimes there were occasions when the messages of the prophets held good news. Sometimes their messages contained guidance or blessing and hope. And as we begin this season of Advent, those are the messages that we find as we read from Isaiah chapter 2. This is what Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Come, descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord." The message of Isaiah is a message of hope, particularly in a time when Israel and Judah were being beaten and captured and dragged into captivity by the Assyrians and then by the Babylonians. God says there will be a day when God's people are not afraid to hear his words, a day when they will seek him out Listen to his voice, learn from him, and accept his judgments. And in that day, wars will end, soldiers will come home, and the world will at last know peace. But God's promise from Isaiah comes to us from almost 3,000 years ago. Since then, we have seen the coming of Jesus Christ, but our modern world, the world in which we live, is still far too familiar with suffering and pain, disease, disaster, and death. God's people from that time until now have asked the same question. When will Jesus return? When will we see the end of famine and disease? When will we see the end of violence and pestilence and war? When, O Lord, will we see the peace that you have promised? And the answer to those questions today is the same as it has been from that time that Jesus' own disciples asked him the very same question. In Matthew 24, verse 36, Jesus says, "About that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be until the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day that Noah entered the ark." About what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, and the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill, one will be taken, and the other left. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. The simple answer to the question of when is we don't know. What we do know is that the arrival of Jesus in the second coming will look very much like it did the first time that he came for his birth in Bethlehem. Even though his coming in Bethlehem was repeatedly foretold by God's prophets throughout the ages, and even though the people of Israel were intimately familiar with all of those scriptures and even clung to the promise of those words, no one was ready. Almost no one was watching for his arrival. And although there were some, few people recognized the birth of Jesus for what it was. And the warning of Jesus is that when he returns, things are likely to be similar. No one will know when he will arrive, but because his arrival will be so unexpected, like a thief in the night, we must live expectantly. We must keep watch. We must live as if he might return any time at all, even today. But what does that mean to live expectantly? And in Romans chapter 13, Paul explains that living expectantly demands more of us than just keeping watch. Paul says, "And do this, understanding the present time, The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave decently as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. Rather, clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ, and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the flesh. As his followers, hope demands that we do more than just watch and wait for the return of Jesus Christ. The time has already come, Paul says, for us to get busy with our preparations for his return, because the world is already 2,000 years closer to his return than in a time of Paul. But how do we prepare? What is it that we should be doing? And Paul's words still ring true with us today. Setting aside the deeds of darkness means we should not just stop doing evil things, but also stop encouraging and supporting the people that do. This can be challenging to us. That means we should stop doing evil, but also stop doing things that are morally and ethically questionable, or things that can be found in the gray areas of ethics and morality. We might stop watching television shows, going to plays, or seeing movies that glamorize immorality, regardless of how popular and funny they might be. We should stop rationalizing our behavior by saying that it's just a little bit of harmless entertainment. We should stop supporting politicians that do a few good things but live as if morality isn't important. Instead, we should live lives that are good, decent, ethical, and moral. We should be known within our professions as someone who won't cut corners or behave immorally or unethically, even if doing so costs us money. Don't go places and do things because they feel good. Do things and go places because they are good. Rather than just waiting and hoping for Jesus to do it someday, we should work to end famine, disease, violence, pestilence, and war. And as you make your everyday choices of how to live your life, where to spend your money, how to spend your time, consider whether you would invite Jesus to go to those places and to do those things with you. If you would feel uncomfortable going to that place or watching that movie or doing that thing or making that decision with Jesus standing right there beside you, then don't do it. Clothe yourself with Jesus Christ and live as if he was walking beside you in everything that you do. Because he is. God's message of the promised Messiah given through his prophet Isaiah is a message of hope. Knowing that Jesus could return at any moment fills us with hope. But hope demands something from us. If we know the helicopter's coming for the roof, we shouldn't go down the stairs to the street. Hope demands something from us. If we have this hope, if we believe that these words are true, then we must live lives of expectation. And doing that will change the way that we work, the way that we play, the way that we spend our time, and the way that we spend our money. If our hope is real, then we must live our lives as if it is.